This woman is too miserable to be tied up. She's about to undergo 81 cold tortures in the West. Just looking at these torture devices will make you feel frightened. The iron pipe used to insert the feet is 3 inches in length. An iron torture device that looks like an eggplant is used specifically to deal with female prisoners. What the hell did the woman do to deserve such a cruel punishment? The owner of the village, Gretel, and her husband fell in love with each other. There was a bad landlord in the village who fell in love with Gretel, so he had a crooked mind. At that time, Gretel's husband was in the way, and he couldn't do it for a while, so he had to pull out the nail. This day, when her husband was drinking in a pub in town, the patient secretly changed the wine glass that the patient used. Not long after she got home, her husband found himself infected with rat poison. In order not to spread this disease to his wife, she came to see him. Her husband just died. The landlord came out with a lot of dust. He asked for land rent. But where did the money come from? She had no choice but to go out and make money. One day she went to the bar where her husband was set up. The waiter told her in secret that when her husband came to drink, the landlord was also there and secretly exchanged glasses with her husband. Gray was confused. It turned out that her husband's death was done by that damn landlord, so she planned to avenge her husband. Gray said to the landlord, "I really don't have the money to pay the landlord to give you the ring on my hand." The landlord touched the ring and said, "It's not worth much money. There is another way to pay the landlord. Why don't we try?" Gray knows what he's talking about. He turns around in anger and runs away. The landlord doesn't care about 3721. He comes straight to the point. Gray picks up the red-hot iron stick. It's the first time he's done it to his hand. Then he flies up a foot. He kicked him 4 feet into the sky. He picked up the shotgun and asked him to get the hell out of here. The owner left with anger. In the middle of the night, a man wearing a mask barged in. He forcibly dragged Gray and his daughter away and put them in jail. The next day, Gray was taken to the street and tied to a table. Many people came to see the party, and Gray's clothes were pulled apart. The butchers hit him side to side and then poured a bucket of cold water on him. The villagers were sad and curious. No one even came up to talk to him. So because the landlord spread rumors that Gray is a witch and killed her husband, there were also infectious disease patients who were kept as victims. On the second day, the more cruel punishment started, and the so-called judge who was in charge of the sentence was Gray's sworn enemy. It was he who used the torture to burn his mother to death. Then the torture on Gray was terrible. In the cell, the intense pain continued, even causing him to lose his mind. A demon appeared in his heart. He repeatedly whispered beside him, "Open the kill barricade, open the kill barricade." But in the end, Gray still resisted Shandong, not wanting to turn himself into a demon to take revenge. But when the next punishment came, he regretted why he hadn't turned into a demon. As usual, Gray was first tied to the executioner's sedan, and the disgusting execution tool was taken out, specifically used to deal with the witch, and there were a bunch of people watching. What's going to happen next? We all know. Some people are afraid, some people are curious. At this time, Gray is speaking in a cheerful voice. "Come on, you bastards. You won't have a good death in the future." The executioner was gradually put to rest. The cruel punishment of inhumanity began. The cruelty of tearing people's hearts made the villagers on the scene angry. The torture is still in progress. Gray has been tortured more and more. The shameless judge asked Gray to admit that he was the witch. Gray continued to remain silent. The judge doesn't care if you admit it or not. Gray's responsibility for the execution. Gray cannot sit and wait for the death of his daughter. Gray found the judge and said that he was ready to admit his guilt. The judge said, Gray, that this could be discussed. In fact, he shamelessly gave Gray advice. Gregory is obviously under the influence of the wine, but for his own plan, he's still drinking the wine from the judge and then kneels down to the judge. The judge is stunned. Who knows, the next second, a hammer stabbed the judge's hands on the table. So shocked, Gray's complaints are to the point of being, "You are the one who killed my mother." Gray didn't finish his words. The judge's claws rushed up and threw Gray to the ground. The villain often died of talking too much, but the heroine didn't care. Just in time, a candle rolled over and lit the claws close. The unbearable claws chose to jump off the building to commit suicide. Look at the judge who was staring at the table. Gray didn't want to talk to him either. He went straight back to the prison to save his daughter. When he was about to open the prison door, the host, who is in conflict with the judge, makes his appearance. The host is then struck by rage when he sees his enemy. When the host takes out his sword, he strikes him. Gray takes his broken stick and starts a heart-to-heart with the host. Then he rips the host's head off with his top-tier sword, finally avenging his husband. At this moment, the judge was standing and the raging fire around him came to him. The judge bit his teeth and pulled out the nail, and then took up his gun, ready to kill himself. At that time, God wouldn't let him die easily, and there was no bullet in the gun. In the end, the judge was burned to death by a raging fire. At that moment, the fire had burned to the prison. Gray found his daughter under the help of a villager. When Gray was about to escape, the tent suddenly fell down. I house by Sam, blocking Gray inside. Seeing that the enemy behind him was already forced in, he asked the villagers to take their daughter first and stay to make the final slaughter. Gray returned to the prison with a gun and fired a shot at a group of butchers until the bad guys were killed. The fire around was getting closer and closer. She knew that she might die here. Suddenly, her husband appeared. He encouraged his wife to live on. It turned out to be a fantasy. This also aroused Gray's desire to survive. She found a big well and climbed down. Finally, she came out of the river. Now her primary task is to find that kind villager. Then she can reunite with her daughter. The movie ends here. This is Lan Chu Yin Ping. See you next time.